Welcome to this episode of Unfair Advantage, where we explore strategies, insights, and methodologies to give you an unfair advantage. I'm your host, Mona Houghton. I'm the CEO of Advantage Anywhere, and we are proud to bring you topics and guests that will stretch your mind and grow your business. If you've missed any of the amazing past episodes of Unfair Advantage, or maybe like me, you just like to binge watch on topics that will improve your life and your business, check out Unfair Advantage recordings at advantageanywhere.com/videos. And be sure to subscribe to our ever-growing YouTube channel so that you'll get the latest episodes of Unfair Advantage, and you'll get the tips and news and the hottest business and leadership topics like we're going to have today. You know, everyone is trying to figure out what is the optimal marketing and sales formula to generate revenue and streamline their processes, especially today, because after all, we all know that every lead is gold. And if that's you, you're in the right place today. Today's special guest, you guys are in for a treat, is Tom Mann. Tom is viewed as the authority in senior living sales and marketing. Tom's currently the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Moorings Park Communities in beautiful Paradise, Naples, Florida. But prior to that, Tom spent 25 years in various executive leadership roles, first with Erickson Retirement Communities, and then as a consultant and principal for Loving Company. Tom's been in hundreds of senior living communities around the country, and I'd say probably the world. And he's used dozens of CRMs, and he's consulted with dozens of leaders in senior living who are happy to tap him for his advice and expertise. I actually suspect that this is going to be an episode that you're going to want to watch more than once. You guys are in for a treat. So today we're going to talk to Tom about how he handles leads and prospects to treat every lead like gold. I'm so glad you're here, Tom. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Mona. Excited to be here today. Excited to talk about a subject I know we both love, and really hard to believe that I've been in this business a little over 30 years now, which is incredible because I'm just 25. So I just don't understand that.
I hear you. I just don't do the math and you're all good to go. I say the same thing. I'm only 29, but I've been running this business for 26 years. So yeah, I love that. So I really want to dive right in, but I think it bears a moment of explanation to differentiate between marketing and sales. So a lot of people confuse marketing and sales, or sometimes we lump them together and think that they're all kind of different variations of the same thing. But I think it's important to distinguish the difference between them, especially as Tom is about to explain how he views marketing leads and sales prospects. You know, marketing, as you guys know, is about building brand awareness. We're looking to create interest. It sometimes incorporates advertising, and ultimately the goal is to generate leads. That's the purpose, the role, if you will, of marketing. And you're going to hear us today refer to marketing leads as MQL, or marketing qualified leads. And different people have different labels for that. But today we're going to refer to MQLs a lot. And we're also going to talk about SQLs, which are sales qualified leads. Those are leads that have actually become active prospects, and we want the salespeople to close them. The results are we want to get prospects that we can close. Would you agree with that definition, Tom?
Absolutely. Mona, when you called me up and asked me to do this, and I suggested that this be our topic, I think we all work so hard to generate our leads, right? And that's the marketing side of the business. And really, when you think about the all-in cost of every lead, when you think about your advertising, all your marketing, the staffing, any vendors you potentially use, you're spending a ton of money just to generate those leads. And I think very often most organizations underemphasize that first touch of that marketing lead. Because until you convert it, it's just a marketing lead, right? And so the marketing team, their goal is to generate the lead And the sales team, their goal is to sell a lead, obviously. And so in my definition, a marketing qualified lead is somebody who hasn't given us any direct buying signals yet. And particularly in today's digital world, we all get a ton of these leads. And, in most organizations, particularly senior living organizations, we really don't have a system set up to kind of have the cream rise to the top. And so to me, a marketing qualified lead hasn't really given us any buyer signals yet. They move into a sales qualified lead or an SQL when they do one of several things. The first is, obviously, if they ask for an appointment, that's someone who's now an SQL, or they come to an event, they RSVP to an event, or they have a detailed further conversation, whether that's over chat, email, or the phone. They're really expressing kind of deeper levels of interest. It's more than someone who just pings you on the internet and says, I want your pricing, right? Mm. So that's how I separate the difference between an MQL and an SQL.
Yeah, that's really good. So an MQL is just someone who might be a suspect or might download a brochure or might do something like that, but until they raise their hand, if you will, that's when they become sales qualified. Is that right, Tom?
Absolutely. And so much so that the team here, and by the way, I think, as I dive into this subject, there are two people here who have put a ton of work in. One is Kimberly Trammell, who heads up our marketing side of the business, our director of advertising. And then also Rachel Braun, who is our MQL director. And she is really a database guru and also a very, very skilled salesperson. And so what we did here at Moorings Park Communities is we created this role, the MQL specialist director. We have a director and a marketing assistant that also helps with that. And their job is to handle every incoming lead. And we'll talk a little bit about speed to lead and the importance of that. But so really what happened is Rachel is one of our most experienced salespeople. But as part of her role, she touches every lead that comes in, every MQL lead that comes in, whether that's over the phone, email, or online chat on our website. We get a ton of chat. And her job is to convert an MQL to an SQL. And the reason for that is multiple reasons. The first is speed to lead, right? We know that the faster we respond to a lead, the more likely we are to convert them to an MQL. All right. So again, as I just talked about, it's Rachel's job to take that incoming lead and have enough conversation to, one, figure out where they are best suited. At Moorings Park, we have 3 incredible communities all based here in Naples, and they're all 10 minutes apart. So very often the prospect doesn't know which community is best suited for them. And by the way, that's an important thing to know because we have a very wide price spread between our 3 communities. Our first community starts at, just $500K. Our middle community starts, entrance fees start at just a little over $1 million. And our newest community, the entrance fees start at $3.2 million. And so figuring out quickly what community that person fits in is important. So Rachel's job is to get the conversation going enough that she can then hand them off to a salesperson. So the beauty of this relationship is, 1, speed to lead. 2, your salespeople aren't dealing with unqualified leads, right? What's the number one thing you hear out of salespeople day in, day out is, oh, these digital leads are not qualified, right? Mm-hmm. So our job is to make sure that they're only talking to people who are ready to speak to them.
That's really good. I know both Kimberly and Rachel, and they're both rock stars. You guys have quite an amazing team. And you're right. Oftentimes, salespeople complain that they're wasting a lot of time with unqualified leads. This allows them to really focus their time on moving qualified ones to close. And you talked about speed to lead, and you talked about your MQL team. You said there's 3 people on that team. Is that correct?
Well,
On the MQL?
I think of it as a 3-person team. And by the way, Rachel and Kimberly, what I love about them is I told them what I wanted. I told them what the big goal was. They went and made it happen, along with Mona's team, your team. And so the team, so Rachel is the director MQL specialist. She also happens to be a sales counselor at Grand Lake. And so she has 2 roles, but I didn't want to bear the expense of having an additional team separate. Most communities don't want to incur that expense. And so Rachel handles all of the leads that come in. She also has our marketing assistant at that community she works at, has 2 roles. She works as a marketing assistant, but also as an MQL specialist. Rachel is commissioned for converting MQLs to SQLs. And she knows all of the sales counselors at the 3 communities. She has access to their calendars. And so her job is to get the conversation far enough along that it makes sense to hand that person off. And if she can't get in touch with the other sales counselors, she has the ability to just go ahead and schedule that appointment herself. So, and then I say that it's a 3-person team because it's Rachel, it's Heather, who also works. Heather very often jumps in on some of the online chats that, are kind of lower level questions. And then also Kimberly Trammell, as I mentioned earlier, our director of advertising. She works closely with Rachel because in our system right now, we currently use Advantage Anywhere as our CRM, and then we use HubSpot as our marketing automation platform. At some point, we'll probably transition everything over to Advantage Anywhere, but for where we were in our journey, we wanted to crawl before we ran. And so Kimberly's involvement is very heavy on the HubSpot side of our business. We also have our drip campaigns in HubSpot, and Mona's team has been kind enough to connect our HubSpot to our Advantage Anywhere so that they work together. But Kimberly, Rachel, and Heather all of the MQLs are handled in the HubSpot part of our business. And they don't get transferred into Advantage Anywhere until they are a sales qualified lead. So again, when our sales team goes into Advantage Anywhere, it's very clean. All of the data has been consistently entered in. I always say garbage in, garbage out when you have a CRM and reporting tools. And so the beauty of our system is that we have very, very clean data. It's getting cleaner by the minute. Obviously, we had to migrate from our old CRM, which will go unnamed at the moment, but really probably for most of the industry, kind of the dominant CRM for the last 50 years in senior living, that unfortunately we just couldn't get what we wanted out of that tool. Probably worth me mentioning at this point, by the way, as Mona mentioned, I have worked with hundreds of communities across the country and pretty much with every CRM on the planet. And so it took a lot of research and search as we made our decisions to move forward with Advantage Anywhere. But for what we wanted to do with this rather unique approach to MQL, SQL, it was the right way to go.
Yeah, Tom, that's really great. I thought of a couple of things I wanted to point out just to make sure people caught it. So you said that within your 3 communities, you have 3 different price spreads. Is it also true to say that you also have different levels of care within those 3 communities, or are they all the same?
Great question. So they are all life plan communities. All 3 of them have the added contract or built into the contract assisted living and memory care. Our original campus, Moorings Park, also has skilled care. So Moorings Park is a type A contract. Moorings Park at Gray Oaks and Moorings Park Grand Lake are type B contracts.
So higher acuity?
Yeah, higher acuity. Well, no, acuity, the reason they don't all have the same contract is we were able to get special licensure that allows us to take care of all the old things that in pretty much everything that in the old days you would have needed to go to skilled care for, we can now do in assisted living. So truthfully, we'll probably never build another skilled care facility again, because again, our residents would prefer to be served in a much more residential setting, and we can pretty much do that now.
Mm-hmm. And you cater to an upscale resident population as well. I mean, that's
Yes.
clear. People are lining up to get into your communities. I know that for a fact, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, we are lucky in that we serve a very unique audience. And so one of the things I'm very conscious of as we have this conversation is, look, not everybody has the resources that Moorings Park Communities has. I understand that. Our marketing team's bigger, our sales team's bigger. We have an in-house ad agency that allows us to do certain things. And on top of that, I'm blessed with a ridiculously wonderful executive team. So I pinch myself at the blessing of resources that I have here, but I have literally worked with retirement communities around the country with all sorts of different marketing budgets, so I can easily relate to the vast majority of folks who are out there.
Well, and I think that's important to point out too, because eventually, regardless of where you're at as community wise, you still want to have the same processes and systems, even if, like you said, you're blessed with more than most. But regardless of where you're at, you still want to have systems and processes that you can count on, which actually reminds me to point out something else that you mentioned, and I just want to make sure people caught it. What you were talking about was really you were talking about HubSpot and Advantage Anywhere, HubSpot being the MQL, where you do your marketing, lead gen, nurturing, that kind of thing, and Advantage Anywhere being the sales side. And that's great for you. And someday we'll see how that goes, but we do have clients who use it for both, because there is nurturing but that is a distinction between the MQL and the SQL. The marketing side are you're generating your leads, you're nurturing your leads, you're warming them up, if you will, ready until they're ready to raise their hand. And then, like in most of our clients where they have different people who do those different roles, that gets handed over to their sales side. So that's a distinction that I think it's important that people don't muddy those two together so much so that it's not effective, is probably the best way to say it.
Right. Yeah, I would say when it comes to CRM, that one of the reasons why we chose Advantage Anywhere was it was the right tool in the sense of there are other CRMs, but one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, what are the useful bells and whistles? And does overcomplication or adding too many tools result in the sales team being effective in none of the things that they want to accomplish, right? And is the data going in going to be trustworthy? And so on the CRM side, it had the right level of, it had the tools that I felt were absolutely necessary, but it didn't overcomplicate things. And then on the marketing automation side, we have a very, I think Mona would tell you, we have a pretty sophisticated marketing program. And so to transition that is a big ball of wax. And so maybe one day we will get there where we move the marketing automation platform over to Advantage Anywhere, but I didn't want to do that and the CRM at the same time. And I liked the ability of those two tools to be able to work with each other.
And I think too, Tom, one of the things that I've appreciated, it's been 9 months since we've started working together, so 8, 9 months, is that you're such a forward thinking. You're very good at looking into the future and just very progressive in your approach to marketing and sales. And it's just a pleasure to work with you. We appreciate that about you. But I also wanted to kind of transition a little bit into something else that you said, which is what makes an SQL an SQL. And I know you said, they request an appointment, attend an event, engage in a meaningful way. Are there any other criteria that you look for to make that switch?
And this is where, having the right person at the wheel is so important. And by the way, two of the most undercapitalized or underappreciated roles in a senior living community, in my experience, is one, the concierge desk, who greets your customer when they walk in. We tend to not really understand the importance of that role. And then who's answering your phone and how qualified are they to handle a sales? And in most communities, a marketing assistant is answering the phone. They've had minimal training. They're not really a salesperson. The sales director is trying to figure out, how do I staff this desk? How do I get someone who will stay here? And we really haven't put enough weight on that role. So again, embarrassing amount of resources I have the luxury of here, but the benefit of a Rachel Braun or a type of person who has that is someone who's highly technical, understands the CRM. I would argue understands the CRM as almost as well as anyone on Mona's team. And that's an important thing, has a highly technical background or skill set, but also has a sales skill set, right? Mm-hmm. Because the sale they're making is, how do I pull you into the conversation far enough that you feel comfortable speaking to a salesperson? Mm-hmm. And so we have chat on our website, and the ability for Rachel or Heather to be able to move that person from an MQL to an SQL, and after the third exchange, say, I think this would be really much easier if if we spoke on the phone. And then she'll speak to them on the phone, and then she will hand them off to a salesperson. And that it doesn't matter whether that's a phone call, email, or an online chat. That's Rachel's job. Now, Mona just put up a chatbot. We are utilizing on our website a chatbot, which really the chatbot's role is to handle the simpler, really exchanges. Common questions. And then the MQL team is watching those chats and deciding, which ones to jump in on or which ones to just let the chatbot answer. So, if it's somebody looking for a job, hey, let the chatbot answer that. If it's somebody looking for an address to mail a present to Aunt Thelma, let the chatbot handle that. And so the chatbot really frees up that resource, the MQL specialist and the team, to spend time on the valuable leads.
That's really good. I want to also point out something else, again, just to make sure people caught it. I think you're exactly right, Tom. I've seen it so many times where senior living providers try to save money by hiring a receptionist at the lowest possible rate that they can, not realizing that is their reputation, that is their face, that is their brand, and they'll never know how many people never progress beyond that receptionist role because of the image that they walked away with or what have you. So I'm like you, I would argue that that's where you want to spend your money. You want to invest because they are the gateway to all of your sales.
Yeah, I would say I would spend more money hiring the right person to answer the phone than I would on spending more money for more advertising or direct mail, because all you have to do is increase your conversion rate by 3% and your sales team will have phenomenal success, right? So it's those little incremental changes. So instead of asking your CEO or CFO for more advertising dollars, spend the money wisely on the person answering the phone and convert those calls at a much higher, those calls and digital leads at a much higher level.
I know we didn't intend to talk about that today, but the conversion, that's where the money is. That's where the sales and the revenue actually comes in. And it's all about the conversion. Like you said, if you get a ton of traffic and you can't convert them, then you've wasted all that money. But if they trip over the receptionist or whomever, or the front entrance looks like it's needs some attention, then you lose all that. And so the conversion rate is where the money is.
Yeah, in fact, when I was a consultant at Love & Company, I used to teach the rule of 78, right? Just one extra sale a month results in 78 months more of revenue. In fact, you can if you Google Tom Mann, Love & Company, rule of 78, you'll see that formula. But that is so important, because now when you go into the annual budget meeting and you're talking to your CFO about your budget and where you need to spend money, the ability to show the impact of just one extra sale a month is huge. So I totally agree with Mona. The gold is in conversion.
Yes, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to share about the role that your SQL, your salespeople play? Any training that you give them, or any coaching that you provide them to help them close deals?
Yeah, so I'm a big stickler for speed to action. And so, I look at it and go, Kimberly has invested so much of her heart into generating those leads. And then Rachel has invested so much of her time and energy into converting that MQL to an SQL. And so I need each of the sales counselors to have the same passion and the same urgency in addressing that lead. And so, after an event, every one of those leads that has requested more information, they need to be contacted the next day. When a lead is converted to an MQL to an SQL, that sales counselor needs to reach out and touch that lead that day, right? Because they're expecting immediate response, and you have to strike while the iron's hot. So that's the first thing I would say. And the other thing about the MQL role, how I arrived here is all those years of consulting, seeing the reports and seeing the poor sales counselors have all of these overdue tasks, and they're working their butts off. And, then some consultant walks in and goes, look, you have 500 overdue tasks. And the sales counselor's like, I'm giving you everything I got. And sales counselors, by the way, instinctively know which leads are going to convert and which ones aren't. So they tend to focus on those leads they think are going to convert. But so I always look at it and go, it's 9 times out of 10, it's process, not people, right? We all have good people working for us by and large. Yes, sometimes you have to get the wrong person, a person who shouldn't be on the bus, off the bus. But by and large, you have hardworking people. And so it's process, not people. And so understanding the MQL to SQL conversion theory, and then also having good reporting that you as a manager can look at and go, okay, we're paying attention to what needs to be paid attention to, and we're helping our people with process. We're not beating them over the head with a stick. We're helping them. And that's everything we do here at Moorings Park Communities is designed to make our salespeople's lives easier. So I look at it, Kimberly looks at it, Rachel, we all look at it and go, we work for the sales team. It's our job to make their lives easier.
Yeah, I can't count. I'm sitting here trying to count how many times I've heard you say process, not people. And I think that's really wise, because if you have the right process, all you've got to do is put the right people into it. And then you guaranteed sustainability and you're guaranteed the consistent results. So I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that before you, but I've heard you say it dozens of times and I like it. There's another term that I've heard you say, and I'd like for you to explain how you describe kind of the control center.
Sure. So back to the MQL specialists. They're they're the control center, right, of all incoming leads. So they have, we, like most communities, have an up system, and that's how we determine it. Once the MQL team determines what community that lead is going to go to. Then they look at the up system, and that's how they figure out what the lead goes to. But the control center I'm talking about is primarily for the chatbot, and being able to figure out which leads to jump in on and when. Because again, the idea of the chat is to take some of the workload off of that team. And by the way, one admission, we have just installed the chatbot into our system here at Moorings Park. I've used this process at other communities before, and so I've had the benefit of being able to see how these tools work. So that is the goal. Okay, when do we want a human to jump in? And in fact, right now I'm experimenting with our chatbot. The face of the chatbot is actually a golden retriever. And so at a certain point, the chatbot will actually ask you, would you like to talk to a human now? So, a little fun with that. We'll actually test that against a nice looking human person at some point to see which outpulls, the golden retriever or the human. But I think of a chatbot as really a retriever. It's retrieving information that we've already created. And so that's how that system works.
So I would be very curious to see how the results of your little experiment with the golden retriever. Many years ago, I started off in advertising and marketing. That was my job, big corporate Fortune 500 companies. And we knew there was a statistic that said whenever you're doing ads, puppies and babies are the highest response you get the most eyeballs out of. So I'll be curious to see how your golden retriever experiment goes. I'm gonna be asking you about that. That's pretty clever. Tom, one of the things, just in full disclosure, I have clients who have said, we look to Moorings Park, we look to Tom as the top echelon of where we want to, when we grow up. I heard someone say this, when we grow up, we want to be just like Tom at Moorings Park. I think that probably echoes the feelings of a lot of senior living providers out there who know you, who watch you either up real close up or from afar even. If you had a senior living provider come to you and say, Tom, we're getting started, or maybe we've been doing this for a while, you're so far ahead, you've done all this, you have all this experience, how would you advise me? What would you advise someone like that? How would you advise them to get started? What steps would you suggest? How would you approach that? I know it's a loaded question, but you can
first of all,
it.
Thanks, Mona. That just means I'm old and I've been around long enough that
no, you're 25.
So, again, I would go back to what I said earlier. The first thing I would invest in is the right person answering the phone and putting the data in. But I would think of that person as a salesperson, not as a marketing assistant, right? Because most communities can't afford to have an MQL specialist and a marketing assistant. And, so I would invest more in that person answering the phone. I want them to be highly tech savvy. I want them to have lots of sales training. In fact, sales experience, being able to convert. I probably would look at that first, because it doesn't matter what CRM you're using. If you don't have the right person putting in the data and handling your leads, it doesn't matter, right? So then if you did have money, I would seriously look at the CRM and marketing automation platform you're using and the process and approach. And again, CRMs and marketing automation platforms, they're tools. And so there is no right or wrong. They're just tools, and how you use those tools. Now, some tools are better than other tools, and again, when I was going through this decision-making process, I had a pretty robust spreadsheet of every CRM, every marketing automation platform. By the way, one of the keys for me when I was making the CRM decision was, again, almost like speed to lead, except this is speed to service, right? It's vital that when my sales and marketing team has a CRM question, because CRMs can be complex, marketing automation programs can be complex, speed to service by that company is very, very important. And quite frankly, the number one reason why I chose Advantage Anywhere was speed to service. There are lots of other benefits to that program, and I'm not saying this.
I thought it was me, Tom.
Well, and Mona, and it was Mona. So as a realist, I know that there's no perfect system. What is the system that comes closest to delivering the level of complexity or lack of complexity? Keep it simple, stupid, KISS. Simplicity means a lot. Execution means a lot. And so I would look first at your person answering the phone. I'd look at your CRM, marketing automation platform. Obviously, marketing and sales is a lot more complex than that, but those are two pretty simple starting points.
I'd agree with that. And I think process is a big part too. Having a process so it's not every man for himself trying to figure out, oh, what do I do here? What do I do there? And then it becomes personality dependent. Like you said, process over people. See, I stole that. It's effectively.
And by the way, one of the, shameless plug here for Moorings Park Communities, but one of the things is that process approach to management is what helps people stay sane in an insane world, right? Mm. We live in a world of high turnover, hard to recruit, and I think the management teams that win are the teams that appreciate the complexity of today's world and look to make their staff, their team, we call them partners here at Moorings Park, how to make their partners' lives easier, both at work and at home. And I think, process is that important part of the relationship between process and people.
That's really good. I think that advice applies to leadership in every industry, but that's really good advice. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. My head is spinning, and as I mentioned earlier, you're probably going to want to watch this a couple more times, and you might want to reach out to Tom. But before we wrap up, Tom, I do have one final question for you. So we did cover a lot of ground, and you touched on a lot of things, but if there was one takeaway that you wanted to make sure people remembered, what would that be, do you think?
I think it's the one we've just been talking about. Process over people, right? To me, there is no perfect system. I still look at my reports and the overdue tasks. And again, my question or my natural instinct is, oh my goodness, I have, incompetent or lazy people. It's okay. There's more problems to solve here. And the more I can automate, now I'm starting to look at artificial intelligence and the role that plays. Again, all in an effort to simplify the process so that our people can focus on the most important part of their job, which is selling.
Good. That's good stuff. I told you this was going to be good. So if you are interested in reaching out to Tom, his contact information is on the screen. As I promised you, he is a wealth of information. This is why people chase him down, look for him to give them advice and insight into not just sales and marketing, but the industry as a whole, literally all over the world. So if it's okay with Tom, feel free to reach out to him. His email address and his LinkedIn is on the screen. If I can serve you in any way, answer any questions, just help you with anything that you might have, you're welcome to reach out to me. My contact information is on the screen as well. So thank you so much, Tom. This was awesome conversation. I loved every second of it. I know that everyone watching it will too. And thank you to our audience for being a part of today's episode of Unfair Advantage. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mona.